What if I told you that we've been lied to? From the moment that we start school to the time that we finish school, that whole process is shaping the way we think, the way we act, and it translates into our adulthood. So let me explain. In the beginning, when we start school, there's a structure. We have to follow a pattern, we have to follow a structure. We need to be in school on time. We need to respect all the adults in the building. We need to get good grades. And then eventually we graduate. Now, in that process, the structure that we need to follow is we need to respect everybody in the building. We need to be in school on time. We need to get good grades. Now, what happens when we don't follow this structure? And I'm going to explain to you how that translates into the workforce. If we don't follow this structure, if we don't get to school on time, we get written up, or X amount of lateness and tardiness, we get sent to court, or we get detention, whatever it might be. But nonetheless, there are repercussions to being late consistently. If we don't respect the adults in the building, that also translates to disciplinary action, detention, etc. If we get bad grades, then we don't graduate. Now, the structure here is, and how that translates to the workforce, is they're both the same, right? The only difference is that in school, they start wiring us to think that the only way to succeed, the only way to make ends meet, the only way to have a decent life is you got to go to school, you got to do the right thing, you got to graduate, and then eventually get a nice job, lucrative paycheck, lucrative salary, etc. If we don't do good in school, if we're late, we get in trouble. In the workforce, if you show up late, you get in trouble, you get written up. In school, if we're falling behind in our grades, we have summer school, extra curriculum, etc. In the workforce, if we want more money, then we have to do overtime. We have to do overtime. We have to pick up more shifts, etc. What I'm trying to say is that our mind is programmed and wired from an early age to see life this way, right? School does not want you to succeed. School doesn't want you necessarily to be the best version of yourself. School was designed to essentially just show that you have discipline, that you can show up, that you can follow direction, teaches you how to be respectful, but it doesn't necessarily teach you how to succeed in the real world. What I mean by that is, yes, you do acquire the necessary skills, math, reading, the basic stuff, but what about what actually matters in the real world? What about finances? What about how to open a bank account? What about, financial literacy? What about how to buy a house? How to finance a car? How to save? How to manage your money? School doesn't teach you any of that because they want to keep you trapped. They want to keep you in that circle where, again, the only thing they teach you is structure. That is all you're really learning besides the basic stuff, reading, writing, etc. But they're more focused on structure because that is what's going to translate into the workforce. By the time you get out of school, whether you went to college or not, you finished, grammar school, high school, and went off to college. By the time you finish all of this, you had already acquired the structure to now go into the workforce, meaning that now for 10 years of your life, you have followed this structure. You followed the waking up early, getting to school on time, being respectful, getting good grades. If you're falling behind, you know what's coming with that summer school, extracurriculum. You have to put more effort. Same thing translates into the workforce. They want to keep your mind closed in that circle, meaning that at work, once you've done those 10 years and you go off to the workforce, now you're ready to do it all over again for the rest of your life, essentially. You show up on time, you need more money, you work overtime, pick up extra shifts. You have to respect your supervisors, your managers. But you already learned all of this, right? You went through 10 years of this whole process. You already learned it. Now you're just applying that in the real world, in the workforce. My thing with that is that there's a few people who actually, they get it, they understand, and they don't follow this structure. They don't follow these rules, right? I myself am one of them who at an early age noticed that I did not want to follow that regimen. I didn't want to follow that structure because I've always thought outside of the box, right? I knew that I didn't want to exchange my time for money. I knew that I didn't want to be told what to do by managers, supervisors, leads, etc. I didn't want to follow that structure. So I created my own path and decided to become an entrepreneur and work under my terms, my rules, have my employees. And you too can do the same. Anyone who wants to shift that mentality from that structure that we've been taught for 10 years while we were going to school, whether you were born in this country or you were born in another country, you went to school in another country, whatever it might be, nonetheless, the regimen was still the same. Now, I always tell people, they ask me, so Mr. Self-Made, how do I break out of this cycle? How do I program my mind to become an entrepreneur? And it's not easy. This is why I've created ebooks, e-courses, course books that help you understand the process, because that shift doesn't happen overnight. That shift that you've learned for 10 years of your life, and now you've taken it and implemented into the real world, the workforce, that shift doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you immediately wake up and understand how to become an entrepreneur and the responsibilities that it takes to be an entrepreneur, because it's not easy. It's not easy when you want to become an entrepreneur and you make it, or at least you think you've made it. It's not easy because you always have the uncertainty. When you have a ton of bills to pay, when you have a whole bunch of responsibilities, you have that uncertainty whether the money's going to come in or not, right? But you have to stay the course. You have to keep that vision, right? Nobody else has to believe in your dream but you. The rest of the people are going to call you crazy. They're going to say, hey, listen, like, why aren't you just a normal person and work like a regular person? You just got to follow the course. There's going to be a ton of people who are going to say, you're crazy, you're this, you're that. It's okay. It's okay. The crazy will pay off. Trust me, it will pay off. We've created a ton of resources for the people that want to break out of that mentality, for the people that want to start their journey into becoming an entrepreneur. We have a ebook, The Breaking Out of the 9 to 5 Mentality, that's been selling very well. People have answered to it very well. Most of my clients, if not all, have gone through that ebook, read it, dissected the book, and they understand it to the T. Because financial literacy, understanding what money is and how money works, is the key to becoming an entrepreneur. If you don't understand, if you're not educated on how money works, you can get money 1,000 times over and you're always going to blow the bag. You're always going to blow the money because you're not financially literate. You don't know what to do with the money. You don't know where to put the money. So the first step is understanding the money. What is the money for? How does the money work, right? Once you understand that, the rest will come to you. By the time you understand how money works, you should be making money. Whether you're still at your job and trying to make money on the side as a side hustle and eventually becoming an entrepreneur, or you just start scaling down your hours at work as your business gets bigger. A lot of the things that my clients tell me is, I don't have the time. I can't find the time to manage all, right? We have responsibilities, wife, kids, I get it. I always tell them that they need to find a balance. If you're working 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, you need to find a balance to where you can dedicate at least an hour and a half to your dream, right? To your education. You need to be knowledgeable in the path that you're going to take. There will come a time where you start eventually making money, right? You've gone through the ebooks, you've read the ebooks, you understand money, you understand the structure, you understand the discipline. Now you know what course of action to take. I can guarantee you that if you follow this and you do it right, you will make money. It's not going to supplement your income from your job in the beginning, but it will long term. Now, what I say is, once you start making X amount of money on the side, you need to start cutting down on the hours that you're working at your regular job, right? So let's say you start making money, you're making $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month. You can now talk to your supervisors, your managers, whatever, make up an excuse. Got to take care of the wife, got to take care of the kids, got to take care of grandma, whatever it is that you got to make up. But start cutting your hours down at your job. Now, don't cut your hours down to sit at home on the couch and watch TV and play video games because now you're making an extra $1,500. You're going to cut your hours down because those hours that you cut down at your regular job, you're going to put them into your business. So you're going to you say you cut down 2 hours or 3 hours at your normal job, but now you're going to take those 2-3 hours and put them into your business. Okay? And now what's going to happen is that the more time you put into your business, the more your business is going to grow. Those 1,500 are going to turn into 2,500. Now you go back and do the same thing. Be like, hey man, listen, I need more time. Unfortunately, I know you guys need me here, but I need more time. My family requires more time. Now they may just let you go and say, well, listen, you knew what you were signing up for. If you can't work the hours that we're asking for you to work, then we don't need you. By that time, if you're making 2,500 or so, you should somewhat be okay, but hopefully they don't let you go and they understand. You cut your hours down again. Now you're working 6 hours, 7 hours. You take those hours, put them into your business. Fast forward, what I'm trying to say is that there will be a time where you don't have to go to work anymore. You're supplementing your income, your full-time income, you're supplementing it with your passive income. As far as now your business is growing and you no longer need to work. This is just one of the structures, one of the plans that I tell my clients that they can implement. And there's many more, but this is one of the plans that it's proven to work. We've done it over and over again, and it's worked. So what I'm trying to say is, there's a whole bunch of ways to make money. There's a whole bunch of ways that we can structure things to make money, to build a business, to become an entrepreneur. There's a ton of ways. With that, I say, if you're interested in learning more, if you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in advice, visit financiallab101.com. Our ebooks are there. Our proven ebooks are there that work. The Breaking Out of the 9 to 5 Mentality ebook is in that website. I suggest that if you're interested in building financial freedom and building a future for you, for your family, for your kids, this is where you start.